Thanks for logging on to MyFoxHurricane.com. We continue to track Tropical Storm Nicole. It is expected to continue that slow strengthening process and become a hurricane before making landfall. But you're certainly seeing a lot more of that deep convection near the center. And really, compared to what we saw this a couple of days ago, which did not look like a tropical system at all, it is certainly looking a lot more like that tropical system approaching hurricane strength. So we have the watches and the warnings out right now all across our viewing area. We are looking at a tropical storm warning, and then you have the hurricane warning as you work your way over onto the other side of the state. Now, we've been watching this really since yesterday, but especially through the overnight hours and into early this morning, you're really starting to see those waves pick up over on the eastern side of the state. You have that long fetch of that east and northeasterly wind, big high, big ridge sitting to the north, and then the lower pressure with Nicole, and that is what is just funneling all this wind right over the state. And so we're seeing that storm surge and those really high waves along the east coast, just relentless. And this is going to continue for several more hours into the day tomorrow as well. So already seeing some very significant beach erosion on that east coast. Here's a live view over in Daytona, and you just continue to see these waves just pounding the coastline. So that will end up being a big story with this. Not only everything else, but just the amount of beach erosion that we will end up seeing over on the eastern side of the state. So as it continues to work its way towards the coastline, 3 to 5 feet of storm surge. Another thing that we have to watch as we will look over onto our coastline is with this track, some of the models indicating this may briefly work its way into the Gulf of Mexico, which would really allow it to pick up a little bit of a storm surge. So basically from, say, Pinellas County on to the north up through the Big Bend, we may see a bit of a storm surge as we head into tomorrow late afternoon and into the evening hours. So we just kind of have to keep that in the back of our mind for the possibility. If you're in this area and we're in one of those areas that is susceptible to even a little rise in the water, you want to take those precautions. So here's the latest with Tropical Storm Nicole. Right now, winds are at 70 miles an hour. It's moving to the west at 12 miles an hour. Really have not seen any significant change in the forecast, and there's really no need to at this point because that ridge to the north is really helping to steer this system on. So it will just continue to work its way towards the coastline. Looks like landfall is late tonight into early tomorrow morning, right around that, say, midnight to 2 o'clock in the morning time frame, and then working its way across the state. As it moves across, it will weaken just because of the interactions with land, but still, when you look at this system, just how large it is. Remember, this started out as an extra tropical system, so the wind field was already large. And so you look at this yellow shade, that is where we're looking at tropical storm force winds. You compare that to the cone, and you see why a lot of the time that cone is very misleading because you have this little narrow cone. But basically, we are talking about essentially the entire state seeing at least tropical storm force winds. We are already seeing some of these spreading into our area, and that would just continue to work its way on towards the west. By the time we get into late tonight, basically all of us are into those tropical storm force winds, and then you have that core working its way through the middle of the state and then pushing potentially out into the Gulf of Mexico. But still, even as we head into Thursday evening, we are looking at portions of our viewing areas still looking at those tropical storm force winds. So kind of a breakdown here with the Fox model as we go into tonight. There you see across our southern counties down towards Frostproof, down in the Highlands County, 40 to 50 mile an hour wind gusts, and those will just continue to spread on towards the west as we go through the day. Tomorrow, here we are tomorrow morning, 50 to 60 mile an hour wind gusts across a good portion of our inland counties, and that will continue to spread on towards west, 30 to 40 miles an hour here in Tampa. And then everything starts to shift more towards the north as the system passes by. But notice we also start to pick up more of that wind coming in off the Gulf of Mexico. So we see that pretty significant waves along the coastline as we go through late tomorrow night and into Friday. So here's the Fox model showing this system working its way across the state right around 1 o'clock in the morning. Looks like it makes landfall south of Fort Pierce. And then all the heavy rain bands continue to spread over the state. And there you see some of these areas where we could get some pretty significant rain with some of these bands working their way through. So that's where we'll see some of these pockets of 4 to 5 inches of rain, but most areas somewhere between 2 to 4 inches of rain. But there you see that potential that we could see some heavier amounts where we see some of those stronger rain bands work their way through. So a lot to still get through, and we're going to keep you updated right here on MyFoxHurricane.com.